Hello everyone, now I'm finally back after a short break and today I have for you a Spirit Speaker deck. Let's take a quick look at it before we jump into the replays. And here we have today's deck, so we are indeed running the new Spirit Speaker with Thunder Manifestation and Cryo Hypostasis. Now this isn't the first deck or first version of this deck I tried out. In my first version I was running Yaimiko, because if you look at Spirit Speaker's kit we can see Elemental Skill only 1 damage, Elemental Burst does decent 4 damage, but overall the damage from Spirit Speaker is very small. So at first I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna run Yaimiko as her summons are a very good source of extra damage, which is why in the first, I think, 2 replays you are going to see Yaimiko instead of Thunder Manifestation, but all the action cards should be exactly the same. So the only difference is that in the first matches there's going to be Yaimiko, but in the later replays it's going to be switched to Thunder Manifestation, which I later realized was much better. Why is Thunder Manifestation better? We'll get to that later. Anyway, let's take a look at the deck. Talent card, double talent card in fact, because this is a very good source of early game protection for your Spirit Speaker, because the way you want to play Spirit Speaker most of the time is to spam her elemental skill as much as possible. You see, Spirit Speaker is in the same group with Whale, Apep and Grab. What is that group? That is monster cards that get stronger over time. Whale, you know, the more you discard, the more max HP you get for Whale, the more damage Whale does. So the longer the game goes on, the stronger Whale gets. Same with Grab, with stacking shields. Same with Apep, by discarding the Apep's kindred cards. And with the Spirit Speaker, the way you get stronger over time is by creating Radiant Hues, an event card tied completely to Spirit Speaker. And whenever you do an elemental skill with Spirit Speaker, you get to select a buff to these Radiant Hue cards. We'll get to that in the replays more thoroughly. But let's quickly go over the rest of the deck. So of course, talent card, like I said, for early game protection. Adventure cards, as you can see, Cryo Resonance, of course, for extra damage, better than Electro Resonance, and of course we have Cryo Hypostasis here, so we get access to Transfiguration. Note that you can absolutely change either Thunder Manifestation or Cryo Hypostasis either to another Electro character or another Cryo character and still get the full benefits from running the Narcissus and Cruise Adventure card. Because of course with this setup we get full value out of that card. Free switches mostly for round 1, but they also provide some good stalling opportunities in the later rounds if need be. Draw power from Strategize and Countdown to Showdown. I'm gonna actually explain why Countdown to Showdown is very good with Spirit Speaker in the replays. And of course, Narcissus and Crew also for draw power. Not to mention, with this deck we are planning to go for the Turnatium Adventure, which also gives a little bit of card draws. Stage Staple, a very good card to run with Spirit Speaker, because these Radiant Hues are considered cards not initially in your deck. As such, Stage Staple, which of course gets stacks every time you play a card not in the initial deck, at the start of the match, you eventually gain basically 1 free Omni die each round from one stage. Other than that, Spirit Speaker, early game, very weak, very easily taken out by an aggressive opponent, which is why we have a bunch of food cards. You don't need to specifically run this combo, like any food cards that give you HP are good. Personally, I would recommend running at the very least double macaronis if you want to replay, or if you even want to lower the amount of food cards in the deck, double macaroni is what I would recommend. Anyway, that's enough about the action card. Let's jump right into the replays where I explain more about the Spirit Speaker. Okay, I just checked. So for the first 3 replays I have Yaemiko, and for the last 2 I finally have the Thunder Manifestation. The reason why I have 3 replays with Yaemiko is because they were actually pretty decent matchups to showcase the deck.
Whatever would you do without me?
So in these first games you are going to see I start a lot with Yaemiko, but I later realized this is a rather bad way to play Spirit Speaker. It just happens to work out in these games. But like I said, Yaemiko here, and there's nothing wrong with using Yaemiko, I just think Thunder Manifestation is better option. Idea round 1, especially if you end up playing Yaemiko, very simple. You want to activate the Elemental Transfiguration because you are anyway getting perfect dice thanks to it. And of course we want to go to the Spirit Speaker here. Now what does Spirit Speaker do? Like said, it creates those Radiant Hue cards. Passive skill immediately creates 3 of them and places them evenly in your deck. This evenly part merely you need to think it this way. There's 1 Radiant Hue at the top of your deck and 2 at the bottom of your deck. That's how you should think about this. But the main point here is just remember it is 3, because whenever you are in a scenario where you need to remember how many Radiant Hues you have in your deck in total, you need to remember to count the ones created by the passive skill. Because otherwise, every time you do an elemental skill, you create 1 Radiant Hue and it's placed 3rd from the top of your deck. That means the 3rd card in your deck will be a Radiant Hue. And every time you do a skill with Spirit Speaker, you can see, there goes the card, you get to do a selection. What are you selecting here? You are selecting a buff for that card you just created, or more specifically all Radiant Hue cards. So you can see here we have, for example, when you play a Radiant Hue, attach 1 stack of Battle Plan. When you play a Radiant Hue, summon Radiant Reflection, damage increased by each repeated selection of this card or this buff. Of course, the same applies to the Battle Plan, and actually the same applies to all of these buff cards. The more you pick them, the more of that said benefit they give. And here we have, there's a total of 6 of these buffs. Here you can see a 3rd one. Whenever you play a Radiant Hue, create 1 shield. On top of this, there is, whenever you play a Radiant Hue, deal 1 cryo damage, once again stacks. When it lower the cost of all Radiant Hues by 1, their base price is 2, as you saw there with the card just created. So that there's the discount one. And then the last one, do I remember or do I need to check? There was shield damage. The last one gives you a card every time you play a Radiant Hue. Those are the 6 in total. Which of those buffs should you take? I'm going to actually let the replay go on because I do nothing special here. Which of those Radiant Hue buffs should you take? The priority list is as follows. Number 1, the discount. If you get the selection of making your Radiant Hues cheaper, always take that. No matter the matchup, no matter your game plan, that is the single best option you can get. By the way, the Radiant Hue card, you can see the combat action, create 2 shields. So whenever you play that card, you are giving your turn to the opponent. So it's not like Navia bullets where you can just spam these all the time. It's more similar to Skirk's Void Rifts, where each time you play one, the opponent gets the turn. Anyway, back to the priority list. Discount number 1. Number 2, shield. Extra shield. Because like I said, these create 2 shields by default. But you saw there, I picked Pillar, which whenever you play a Radiant Hue, create a shield stack equal to the number of stacks of this status. That is the number 2. So you want discount, then you want shield, then damage, then card draw, then the battle plan, and the worst possible one to pick is the summon. You don't want the summon. But anyway, that is the priority list. I'm going to put it while editing on the screen so you can check it out from there.
This should be fun.
And now that you know the order of the buffs, let's discuss them more in detail. Number 1 thing, the discount. Why is it the best one to create? Pick. Correction. Why is it the best one to pick? Very simple. The discount applies to all of your Radiant Hue cards, and you can see they are 2 cost by default. That means you can make a 2 cost card, which by itself already creates 2 shields, into a 0 cost card that gives you 2 shields. Like even if Spiritspeaker that gets taken out immediately after you've picked the discount twice, and by the way you can pick the discount a maximum of 2 times because of course there are only 2 cost cards. You cannot get more than 2 when it comes to the discount. That's also an additional benefit of why you should pick the discount. After you've picked the discount 2 times, it cannot appear again, which means you only have 5 different buffs left in total to pick from. It's no longer 6. So the likelihood of getting a Pillar or Icicle, in other words, the shield or the damage, which are the number 2 and 3 in the priority list, it becomes more likelier to get those buffs. So that's the secondary reason why the discount is simply the best. But you can think of it as this way. Start of the game, the passive skill creates 3 of the Radiant Hues in your deck. You deal 1 skill with the Spiritspeaker. You create 1 more Radiant Hue, so there's a total of 4 Radiant Hues in your deck. You pick the discount, that is same as saving 4 dice. Because you have 4 of these Radiant Hues in your deck, picking the discount, that's plus 4 dice for you, basically. You do a second skill with Spiritspeaker, you now have 5 Radiant Hues in your deck. Now, if you get the discount again, which is by the way the best case scenario, you do 2 skills, you get 2 discounts. Nothing is better than that when you're playing a Spiritspeaker. But you do the second skill, you get the discount again. Now you have 5 Radiant Hues, all of which are free to play, all of which already give you 2 shields. Even if Spiritspeaker gets sniped after that, you already have in your deck 10 shields for free. All you need to do is draw them. And out of those 5 Radiant Hues you've created, 2 of them are the number 3 and number 4 card from the top of your deck. Because like I said, the Radiant Hue is placed 3rd from the top. Which means when you do the skill once, it goes to the 3rd from the top. You do the skill again, the first Radiant Hue you've created gets pushed back by 1, so it's the 4th card, and the new Radiant Hue is now the 3rd card from the top. Not to mention how the passive skill works, because they are evenly, you don't need to draw much more cards to get to the 3rd Radiant Hue, which is from the evenly placed Radiant Hues from at the top of your deck. Like, you can assume if you draw about 10 cards in total, you've drawn 1 Radiant Hue from the passive skill. That's basically how to think about that. So you get very easily access to a total of 3 of these Radiant Hues, each of which gives you 2 shields for free if you are able to get double discount with your first 2 skills. Now of course in this match you saw I started with Yaimiko, I did a Yaimiko skill, but I later, like after playing a little bit with Spirit Speaker, I've come to the conclusion it is basically always better or simply the best strategy to do. Start with Spirit Speaker, spam as much of the skill as you can. Every match I've lost with Spirit Speaker is usually against aggro decks because of course it takes time to stack up these benefits, and not to mention on top of that you still need to draw this Radiant Hues to begin with. Which is why what you see here, whenever your opponent gives you the capability to spam the skill, spam it as much as you can. By the way, there we got the first discount, and you can see all of these cards are now discounted, and you can see I played 1 card, I did 1 damage to the opponent, I draw 2 cards, and I have 4 shields. All from the fact that I've just spammed the elemental skill of the Spirit Speaker. You can see here all of the buffs that come with playing 1 of the Radiant Hue cards. And this is what makes Spirit Speaker so broken currently. But like I said, I have lost with it. This is not the sort of whale on release scenario. This is nothing of the sort. Because Spirit Speaker can be countered by aggro decks. Because you need to do like at least 4 skills with Spirit Speaker so that you have enough Radiant Hues in your deck, on top of having enough good buffs that you can actually counter aggro decks. But if you are not able to do that, like from experience I can say, whenever I've been able to do 4 skills against an aggro deck, I win. If I'm able to do only 2 skills, I only win if I get 1 or 2 of the discount buffs. If I don't get any discount buffs, I've always lost to different aggro decks. So a Spirit Speaker is very broken against mid-range and stall decks, but against aggro decks it is not that strong. That's the best description of the power level of Spirit Speaker. Very strong against slow decks, weak against fast aggressive decks. And the best way, by the way, to play against aggro decks, you should basically start with Spirit Speaker, spam as many skills from Spirit Speaker as you can, and then sacrifice it. Especially like, because I'm running Yaimiko, Yaimiko of course isn't that great when it comes to late game if you don't collect her burst at the start of the match. But with Thunder Manifestation, like Thunder Manifestation plus Cryo Hypostasis, that's easily able to, you know, carry you late game. Oh yeah, by the way, playing the talent card also gives 1 Radiant Hue into your hand, so you also have that benefit going for you, which is also one of the reasons I'm running double talent card, which is by the way basically the same as with Crab. When you play a Radiant Hue, create 2 shield stacks once per round, basically the same what Crab talent does. But yeah, that's about the discount. Yeah, that was basically all about the discount. So why is the pillar number 2 in the priority list? Pillar or the shield is number 2 in priority list because it gives you protection. Spirit Speaker is fragile. You don't create any HP, you don't get any shields from using her skills. Which is why pillar is the better option than damage. Because remember, your skills still do damage. You don't have only the Spirit Speaker in your deck. Like Cryo Hypostasis does good damage, Yaimiko does good damage. That's why the pillar takes priority over the icicle, which is the extra damage. And you can see here my opponent quit because they knew they were no longer able to go through my shields, which come from the pillar buff, which is why it's number 2 on the priority list. Anyway, I'm gonna continue explaining about the buffs and why their priority list is what it is in the next replay. So, pillar is number 2 because our skills already do damage. We don't need to rush the icicle buff, which is the damage buff, and number 3 on our priority list because of that.
Whatever would you do without me?
Anyway, the icicle is still better than the battle plan, card draw, and the summon because it's direct damage that comes every time you play a Radiant Hue card. So, how should you think about why is the icicle number 3? Because it's still just that much better. You might think the battle plan is good, which it is, but because we are running adventure already, we are running Tonatium. Tonatium already fixes our dice, gives us battle plan. So the battle plan isn't that necessary. Not to mention, the Tonatium has draw power. Having Tonatium, you know, to get 2 stacks, you draw 2 cards, which is why the manifestation buff, which is the one that gives you card every time you play a Radiant Hue, is also lower on the priority list than the damage or shield. But yes, the direct damage, the icicle buff, is just better than those ones because Tonatium gives us basically all the other buffs we need. You want to summon Rost Tonatium, there you have a summon, you know. So yeah, nothing much to say about the icicle, the damage buff. Just remember, it's better than the rest, because if you're running Tonatium, which why wouldn't you be running Tonatium, you get access to all of the same benefits anyway. Number 4 on our priority list is manifestation or the card draw. Note about the manifestation. If you are not running like Underwater Treasure or Taro Marrow in your deck, you should only really pick a maximum of 2 manifestation stacks. Why, you might ask? Overdraw. You very easily overdraw if you pick more than 1 stack of manifestation. Picking 1 stack of manifestation is, in my opinion, the ideal. Remember, every time you do a skill, the Radiant Hue is placed 3rd from the top in your deck. So, and like I explained earlier, if you do the skill again, now your 3rd and 4th card are both Radiant Hues. Do a skill a 3rd time, now your 3rd, 4th and 5th card from the top are all Radiant Hue cards. Meaning, you only need 1 stack of manifestation buff, 1 stack of the get a card when you play a Radiant Hue buff, to get into a cycle. A cycle where you play a Radiant Hue, you draw 1 card, which is again a Radiant Hue, because like I explained, whenever you do a Radiant Hue, they basically get put into a row in your deck, starting from the number 3 spot. The more skills you do in 1 round, the better it is for the next round or the same round when you start drawing those Radiant Hues, because they are going to be coming from your deck one after the other. So, what you want to do, of course, is to get 1 manifestation stack, so that when you draw 1 Radiant Hue card, you immediately draw the next, and you can keep repeating that cycle. Okay? And if you get more than 1 manifestation stack, now you might run into trouble if your hand is already full, or close to being full. Because now each one of your Radiant Hue cards acts like a strategize. 1 card gets turned into 2 more. And that easily if you are trying to pay a lot of Radiant Hues to get, for example, damage from the Icicle buff, the damage buff. Or if you are trying to stack a lot of shields from the pillar, or the guards themselves, since they create 2 shields by default. If you are trying to do those things, you very quickly fill your entire hand. Which is why, in my opinion, you should not pick more than 1 stack of Manifestation, the card draw buff, if you are not running something like Underwater Treasure, Tarot Marrow, which are very good, of course, because now you are creating dice and HP to your deck and you want to draw those cards to get access to those dice. Only in those sorts of decks do you want to pick more than 1 stack of Manifestation. Still, Manifestation takes priority over the Battle Plan or the Summon. Next up on the priority list, Battle Plan. This is just a discount to your skills. If you are able to make Radiant Hues free, like they are for me here, thanks to 2 stacks of Swift Shadow, which this is the reason why it is. You've seen, you followed the match, you've seen why Radiant Hue is the #1 buff to pick. If you see it in that match, my opponent, well, too bad, they had a good start. Maybe a little odd going for Kirara Burst round 1, but they had a good thing going, but too late now. That right there, that's 4 shields per card. 12 shields in total in my hand, just there. And you can see my opponent can no longer deal damage. I mean, I'm sure they have Fell Dragon or something in that deck, which is, by the way, piercing damage is the weakness of Spiritspeaker along with aggro decks. Very similar to Grab. Like, if you're running against Golden Wolf Lord, that's just too bad. But at the very least, you have a 10 HP character and you have food cards in your deck, so you should be able to put up a fight against, you know, Wolf Lord decks and other piercing damage decks like Fell Dragon. Anyway, back to Battle Plan. Nothing really special once again. The reason why Battle Plan isn't on top of the priority list or higher on the priority list is because once we get a few stacks of Icicles, playing a Radiant Hue card deals more damage than doing a skill with Spiritspeaker. That is the reason why we don't, or you shouldn't really care about getting the Battle Plan, unless you end up in a scenario where your options to choose from are card draw, summon, battle plan. If you end up in that scenario and you, like I mentioned earlier, you've already picked the card draw buff once, then go for the battle plan. Because you know, you might as well. But the same thing as with the card draw, the moment you pick more than 1 stack of the battle plan, you very fast end up in a scenario where you have like a 10 stacks of battle plan on your character and you aren't realistically going to play 10, you know, skills anymore in that game if it gets to that point. Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, not to mention, we have Tonatium. Tonatium gives battle plan already, so it isn't that important to get the battle plan. And at the bottom of the priority list, the one you should never pick unless you want to maximize your damage for 1 round and you didn't get to pick from, you didn't get Icicle when you were choosing the summon. Why is the summon the worst? It's a 1-time summon, and every time you play a Radiant Hue card, it refreshes that one and same summon. That is to say, you pick the summon, and you play 1 card, it creates it, you play a new card, the same summon gets refreshed. That means it's not like the Icicle where every time you play 1 Radiant Hue, you deal 1 damage. No, it's 1 damage total per round. And not to mention, it has a usage of 1. It activates once. It is the single burst option to pick. You get nothing from it. You cannot stack it to use it with, like, say, Hydro Turbo for freeze decks. There's nothing the summon can do for you, except provide +1 damage if you didn't get to choose from the icicle when you were picking that buff. Never pick the summon. Anyway, now we've gone through the priority list. Now let's look at the game plan for Spiritspeaker more in detail. And by the way, this is the last game with Yaemiko. The next 2 games will have Thunder Manifestation, and I will probably re-explain the game plan, what you want to do when you have Thunder Manifestation or another more aggressive character than Yaemiko. But you can see here, I start with Spiritspeaker, and at this stage I had already realized it is better to just spam Spiritspeaker as much as you can, no matter the matchup. Because like I mentioned earlier, if you're against aggro, you at least want to make sure that the Radiant Hues that you have in your deck are worth playing, which is why you want to spam the Spiritspeaker as soon as possible. And like I said, against aggro, against stall, against mid-range where you have more time, you might as well start with Spiritspeaker and spam as much as you can, so you get the advantage of having overpowered cards in your deck as soon as possible. So yeah, even if you are running an Electro Summon character like I'm playing, and it would be very easy to activate your Transfiguration using such a character, don't bother with it. It's better to always start with Spiritspeaker if you are going for any sort of aggro or mid-range deck with your Spiritspeaker. And by the way, Spiritspeaker definitely a mid-range character, because early game you are going to spend so much time just spamming that skill. Alternative, what you can do is play a full stall deck with Spiritspeaker, you know, add double Hydro characters like Kokomi. Furina actually would be very good, since you can use Furina Burst to buff the icicle damage. Barbara, you know, using characters with a lot of healing and having them keep a Spiritspeaker alive so you can spam the skill. A perfectly valid option to do instead of something like mine. I mean, this looks like an aggro deck, but I would say this is a mid-range deck. It always takes like round 5, even round 6 or above that, depending on my opponent is playing, like how long it takes to actually win the game, because the damage from Spiritspeaker is so low early game, and you don't really want to use your other characters that much. By the way, Cryo Happisters is a very good monster card to pick for your Spiritspeaker decks if you are going for either the Superconduct Transfiguration or the Rimegrass Transfiguration. Of course, because both Spiritspeaker and the Hypostasis are monster cards which are cryo element, which use other weapons, so the full or all the necessary requirements for the Narcissus Goose adventure card to get full value are met by running these 2 characters. Oh yeah, by the way, Rimegrass is a definitely good alternative option which gives you extra damage, but like I mentioned, I think Spiritspeaker is better in mid-range decks. Rimegrass would do good for you, as it's better for damage early game, but like, I'm using Deep Freeze here. At the very start I used the, I guess, nerfed, I don't know, what's the Electro version, which gives you extra damage whenever you do a Superconduct. At first I picked that one, but I quickly came to realize this one is better because you are spamming skills with Spiritspeaker anyway. What was I even saying? I forgot. Instead of going for Rimegrass, which gives you extra damage, you can pick Deep Freeze, which disrupts your opponent's game plan, and since this is a mid-range deck, it's better to disrupt your opponent, giving you more time to spam Spirit Speaker skill to get more Radiant Hues and making them even stronger. Yeah, something like that. So Rhymegrass perfectly fine, nothing wrong with it, but I personally like this more, because this way you can buy yourself more time against other decks that like to take it slow and get more powerful over time. I mean, think about Whale for example. You can screw over a Whale Burst by forcing a card which has like 5 or 6 total cost thanks to cost increase from the Deep Freeze. And then like, okay, yeah, sure, the opponent has one big damage coming from burst, but it has like 1 stack, you do 1 skill and that burst is gone. Stuff like that. You know, it helps you, in my opinion, much better than just the 2 piercing damage per character with Cryo application, which Rhymegrass can give you. But anyway, yeah, as you can see here, the game plan very simple. Spam Spirit Speaker as much as you can, use your other characters to tank damage. This applies even for the Thunder Manifestation version and in extension to other decks where you use a more aggressive Electro character. Yamiko of course would be a perfect sacrifice as well, like there's nothing wrong with sacrificing Yamiko, I mean, why not, you know. Also Radiant Hues, very good for stalling, not to mention you can see here, thanks to the talent and 4 stacks of the pillar, a ridiculous amount of shields gained, like so, like 6 shields without the talent card buff. By the way, there you actually just saw why I'm running Countdown to Showdown here and not something cheaper. Because the Radiant Hues are put the third from the top of your deck, having Countdown, which draws the top 4 cards from your deck, guarantees that you draw the Radiant Hue, at least one of them, depending on how many you've created, immediately. Also, that's the reason why I'm running my Arcane card is the Lost Sands Legacies. Don't remember the name properly, but that I have that card for my Arcane for the same reason, so that I have easy access to the Radiant Hues I've created during the round. Because of course if I just wait, I'm going to draw the top 2 cards in my deck and then I know the next card. For example here, my next card should be a Radiant Hue. You can see if I draw even 1 card here, I should be getting a Radiant Hue card, because I did a elemental skill with the Spirit Speaker last round, if I followed the replay correctly. Yeah, there you see. So you can always just wait 1 turn after using a skill with Spirit Speaker and you know the top card in your deck will be a Radiant Hue. And here you see the manifestation, what I was talking about. 1 stack of manifestation, playing a Radiant Hue, and you just immediately get a new one. Of course, in these matchups, usually like 3 stacks of pillar is enough for you. But because we are playing against Nefer, Nefer is able to do a lot of damage. That's the reason why I've gone for so many pillars, but now you can see I've been starting to stack up the Icicle, the damage buffs here, you can see. And we use it here to take out Lauma.
Oh, Forest, take my broken crown.
And also this sort of matchup, you can see, yeah, this is why Pillar, the shield, goes above Icicle on the priority list. When your opponent is playing something aggressive, something capable of dealing a lot of damage, like Nefer, it's just better to be able to stay alive longer, you know, have to take the time for your opponent to spend their resources, and then slowly start to take them out. Once you've made sure that they have no way of, you know, actually dealing damage to you. And also here you can see this is my stage level. It's so easy to get so many stacks that you are guaranteed that lovely Omni die, 1 Omni element die per round. You can see here, my opponent is trying to deal something here, but it's just too late. I have too many shields, too many radiant hues, and too many buffs for my radiant hues.
Can't hide the truth.
And of course, Tonatium is here for a reason. For the buffs I mentioned earlier, because Tonatium basically does the same thing spamming the elemental skill does for the battle plan, card draw and summon, but Tonatium is just, at least summon wise, far better. And it also gives us that lovely extra damage, because early game we spend all of our time just tanking damage with our characters. It's very easy to get into a scenario where your opponent's characters are of higher HP than your own. Anyway, for the next 2 replays, which will be the last 2 replays of the video, we'll be having Thunder Manifestation. Now, this was the, by the way, closest. I mentioned earlier, the games I've lost mostly with Spiritspeaking has been against aggro decks, and almost all of those aggro decks have been catalyze decks, like my opponents here. Not, of course, quite like theirs. It's more often Sarah or Official with Nahida, for example, or Collei. Those are the ones I've mostly lost to. Of course, the new Catalyze Transfiguration has given a significant buff to all of the Catalyze decks in general. So this replay is mostly here for that fact that usually these matches are of great difficult to me, but of course, I mean, Baizu, Yaemiko, and not even doing double skill with Yaemiko, giving me a lot of time. And you can see here the same thing I did last match, starting with Spiritspeaking, spamming a double skill. I did actually, because I had extra die and quite the perfect dice rolls, I was able to do even a Thunder Manifestation skill, so that next round I can play the Deep Freeze. Also, the changing shifts cards, the 2 copies you saw here, the reason why. They are very good when you start with Spiritspeaking, because they allow you to play the 2-cost adventure artifact and still switch off from Spiritspeaking. They allow you to play Seymour and a 1-cost card if you happen to copy a 1-cost card from your opponent. They allow you to play, you know, all sorts of cards round 1 and still be able to switch off from Spiritspeaking. By the way, here I copy Blessing of Am, so I mean, I already saw the Tonatium, but now I can be certain my opponent has Fell Dragon in their deck.
Taking a turn for the better.
Because I mean, Tonatium, 2 characters with summons, it's pretty obvious they have Fell Dragon in their deck. I mean, Yaemiko and Kirara bursts are the only good single target damage outside of the end phase, and end phase only does good damage if they have double Yaemiko, or the buffed Yaemiko summon, which they currently do not. And here also the reason why the talent card is so good, that +2 shields is very, very helpful for tanking damage. And creating 1 Radiant Hue card immediately into your hand. You can see, for example, here I don't have a lot of card draw power currently. I mean, I still have the Arcane, of course, but I don't want to get rid of these cards before I've played them. Because otherwise I would have to spam a lot more skills to get access to them. Oh, and of course, double talent card for the Spiritspeaking also has the benefit that you can, after playing 1 Radiant Hue card, play the talent card and refresh its +2 shields per round effect immediately. And there we go, 2 stacks of Swift Shadow. Basically, already I have won the game at this stage. Especially because my opponent just isn't going for Yaemiko. I was actually quite surprised, I remember when this game happened. I was so certain, okay, now they are going to go for Yamiko, now they are going to do it, but never did it happen. And by the way, of course, my opponent isn't playing Blessing of Am on the Sacred Lord, because one, they want to deal piercing damage onto my Spirit Speaker, and two, their characters have more HP than my characters. They would take the damage from that discard effect of the Sacred Lord. And of course I do tank the damage with Hypostasis, because I have the capability of doing so. The piercing damage, that is, we already have enough shields that I could have easily stayed on the Spirit Speaker as well, if it wasn't for the Sacred Lord, because I was, like mentioned, I know that if my opponent isn't playing Fell Dragon, I don't know what the hell they would be doing otherwise. Because I'm certain they have Fell Dragon, and there's the fear that they might have technique that lets you activate the end phase effect of one of your summons. I was afraid that, okay, they might pull off that combo and snipe Spirit Speaker. Also another reason why switching to Hypostasis is a good idea. Here I think I was a little afraid of Yamiko burst, which is why I switched. And I no longer switched back, because I know I didn't have the dice to do a skill. And anyway, this way I'm able to tank the Sacred Lord damage once again onto my Hypostasis. You can see here, because Thunder Manifestation is a good damage dealer, a good late game carry if need be, especially because we can keep it alive with the Radiant Hues, I'm just staying on the Hypostasis. Also here a slight misplay. If I wanted to be optimal, I should have played Changing Shift before Radiant Hues, so that I was able to tank all of Kirara's burst damage if there was, for example, a fast action switch coming to into Yamiko burst from my opponent. But nothing of the sorts happened, at least there. And you can see here Swap stalling slowly to Spirit Speaker before spamming her skill again, and there is the Fell Dragon, unsurprisingly. But, of course, because I still have the time, I still have the dice, I can easily just switch to Cryo Hypostasis and lovely tank both piercing damage cards with just 3 HP. We already have enough shields to tank the damage from these summons. And I make sure of that by playing another Radiant Hue. Now I think here oh yeah, by the way, once again my opponent has more HP than me, so the -5 or the 5 piercing damage goes to the opponent's by shoe. And you can see here the piercing damage lovely tanked by the Cryostasis. Now here, if you are wondering, I make a misplay. I remember this. I make a misplay because at this stage I think I was grabbing a drink and I didn't notice that my opponent played this right here. So I come back here where I quickly picked Spirit Speaker, thinking, okay, my opponent had done a skill. I thought my opponent had done a skill and it was my turn to play. I speak Spirit Speaker because of that. Had I paid attention that it was in fact the Dendro Resonance, I would have absolutely went to Thunder Manifestation, because I already have the talent card and artifact. It's way better to keep Spirit Speaker alive here over Thunder Manifestation. But that right there, what you saw, that was a misplay on my part, which allows my opponent, after trying a lot of cards and playing another Dendro Resonance, to actually snipe Spirit Speaker here. I believe they draw most of the... yeah, they only have one card left. But there's nothing to worry. I have some healing cards and I have a Radiant Hue, and this is, by the way, I don't think we've seen this so far. The broken part about Spirit Speaker, even after she is defeated, you keep all of your buffs. This is also part of the reason why spamming Spirit Speaker's skill against any matchup is the way to go. Because even if she dies, you keep all of the buffs. And because of that, I mean, I no longer need the resonance card, of course. I already have fixed dice thanks to the double stage temple. I'm easily able to stay alive here thanks to the Radiant Hue plus Macaroni's combo. And after some bit more card draws, I even draw the second artifact, the second Nim Stream, and you can see it's basically checkmate here. Fell Dragon out of the game, Icon, Blessing of Am, the Sacred Lord. They have the most HP character on the field, even after the HP which the Blessing of Am gives me. On top of which, I will get the dice, thanks to the battle plan, to burst and play the Cryo Elemental Resonance. It is GG's right here. And my opponent realizes it about now. There we go. One last game for today. Now, in this last game, you're going to see what happens, or what is the weakness of a Spirit Speaker. I guess since this is the last game, this is now a perfect time to talk about the weaknesses of Spirit Speaker. So like said, what you want to do with Spirit Speaker is spam her skill as much as possible. That has the downside that you are going to have to tank all the damage early game on to your Spirit Speaker. I mean, you've seen in the last 2 matches, I like to do 2 skills with Spirit Speaker, then switch off. And that is quite the ideal game plan. Of course, depending on what your opponent is playing, like for example against certain swirl decks, it might be better to start with Thunder Manifestation, switch to Spirit Speaker, then do the skills, then switch again to avoid being swirled. But it's based on the matchup. Most of the time, just starting with Spirit Speaker and spamming the skill is good. But what are the weaknesses? Number 1, you don't get the discount buff. No matter how many times you spam the skill, because out of the 6 buffs, it's always picked on random which tree you get to choose from. If you don't get the discount, even after spamming the skill for many times, it's looking quite bad for you. Because remember, even if you are, like in this stage, able to pick Pillar as instead of the discount, you are paying 2 cryo dice for what is 4 shields. In comparison, Geo Resonance, 1 die for 3 shields. In comparison to Cost Tenacity, 2 dice for 2 shields that refresh every round. The original 2 dice for 2 shields, that is a bad deal. You should not play Radiant Hues when they are in their default state. Neither should you play Radiant Hues when you only have 1 buff. You should at the very least have 2 buffs for Radiant Hues before you play any. Because otherwise you are not getting your dice worth of benefits. It is just not worth it for you to play that way. The only reason why you would want to spam Radiant Hues early game is if they are discounted. And because in my deck the only way to discount them is by the Swift Shadows discount buff you can choose for the Radiant Hues. For that very reason, there's a glaring weakness with Spirit Speaker, and that is the fact if you don't get the discount, you are just screwed most of the time. As you see here, sure I have 3 stacks of Pillar, but I have no way of actually like doing any damage. Sure, I can keep my characters alive for a little longer, but I'm gonna be spending all of my dice on just creating shields. It is not worth it. You can see here I'm desperately spamming just Spirit Speaker. Here I actually do play one of them because I got the talent card, so it was worth it for that +2 extra shields. And you can see here I even do my arcane card in the hopes that now I'm going to get it, now I will have. No. Still no. By the way, I did pick manifestation there because I have no other draw power currently in hand. So it was better than getting more pillar stacks. And here I think I made a miscalculation. I thought I would be able to tank all of the damage and survive on 1 HP, but in fact I will not be able to do that. I will. Which here leads to a rather awkward scenario. I have 3 stacks of pillar, 1 manifestation, and thunder manifestation against 3 characters with quite good HP. So it's looking quite bad for me. But not to worry, this match is here for a reason. And this is what I was talking about, why it's still better to just spam the elemental skill no matter what. Because at the very least, you get some buffs. And when you get some buffs, you are still in the game. The cards are not useless. As long as you have, like I said, at least 2 buffs on your radiant hues. They become worth it to play when you have at least 2 buffs. More than 2 buffs, they are absolutely, you should always play them. And you can see here, I have 5 stacks on both stage stable. That means perfect dice for next round. Also Blessing of Am with quite the perfect timing here. And I don't actually end up playing this combo because I'm thinking that, okay, is there really need to? Because like I said, this is the cryo damage one. I have no real way of activating it, so playing it would be just for the dice. And since I got Countdown to Showdown, I might as well use that to fix my dice, especially now that I have double woven. So there was really no need to play the Blessing here just for dice fixing. Starting with the Radiant Hue, of course, because I want to make sure that I tank as much damage as possible. Of course, my opponent got into an awkward scenario. Kusawa has been discarding all of their hand cards, so they are at the mercy of their dice. I, on the other hand, only get stronger and stronger here because I've been able to draw more and more cards. I've been able to stack those. I have gained the necessary stacks on the stage tables to get that +2 dice per round. And I've been drawing now my food cards to keep myself alive. So it's actually looking worse and worse for my opponent. And actually, surprisingly, I would think they would go for Seahorse here to actually, gain a hand card. I think this was definitely a mistake by my opponent. They should have gone to Seahorse to get that extra card. Because now, once again, Kusawa will just empty their hand, and if they get bad dice, too bad, you have nothing. Like so. So, if my opponent now has bad dice, there is nothing they can do. Sure, Kusawa gives discounts, but that's only a couple of skills, a couple of normal attacks perhaps, if they are unlucky. Lovely Providence there, and thanks to the fact that I have other healing cards, I'm able to draw quite a lot. Why am I still getting Radiant Hues? The passive skill of the Hermetic Spiritspeaking. I'm at the bottom of my deck, so I was still getting that last card from there. Evenly placed, meaning that one is at the bottom of your deck. That's why I still got one more of those. But I'm pretty sure that was the very last one in the deck. Activating the summon from the adventure again, because of course I have Blessing of Am, I'm able to do good damage to Apep. And there goes Seahorse, and thanks to the fact that I have Cryo Resonance, soon Apep will be out of the game. Now that's been a lot of Spirit Speaking. Next time, if I have time, to do another video this week. There will be a never video on Saturday, but we will have to see. Anyway, that's all for today. Goodbye.